Hello, welcome back to Emerge, the health podcast for busy, high performing women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson Ridley. And today I'm actually gonna share some of the new, crazy, exciting, and insightful things I've been learning in my PhD program, which I'm about 70% done with my coursework now. So I've only got about 5 classes left. But the one I finished over this past weekend was in pro-conscious meditation. And I'll be honest, meditation is something that, I've kind of seen and always thought was kind of strange, and think of monks in Nepal as who does that. And as I've been learning more, I've actually become aware of and just seen there's a whole body of research and a plethora of information around how meditation really helps on multiple levels, one of the biggest being in reducing stress. And so I'm going to share, some of the stuff that I've learned and started to utilize with some of my clients, and seen positive effects from in my own life and in their lives, and maybe dispel some of the myths around what meditation really is. Because I know for myself, like I identify as a Christian, and this is something that I have heard in argument. I've always been rather open-minded and believe that we can draw on and learn from and utilize some of the things that just allow us to connect on a deeper spiritual level, that don't have to be about east west Christianity versus something else, and we can all participate in and use to kind of deepen that connection with whatever our source is, right? So for those of you who identify as Christian or in that way, I invite you to just have an open mind, because it doesn't necessarily have to be about faith or doing something that goes against religion in any way. It's literally something that can change your life in a in a big way, and improve your health in an even bigger way. And where this comes in is, I mentioned stress. And so the idea, like the basic meditation at its core, and how I explain it now to my clients, is it's about just giving your brain a reset. Literally, they've done measurements with EEGs where they actually can measure brainwaves and what's going on in your brain as people are meditating. And so Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's kind of big on this, and he's written a bunch of books, and I'm very Dr. Joe Dispenza's out, and did one of his guided meditations over the weekend, and it was like amazing. And I'll share that experience in just a second. But he's measured in his workshops and stuff, and other people have measured what's happening with the brainwaves. And so we have, and I've talked about this on the show with a few other people, but there's 4 different types of brainwaves, right? And so we have alpha, beta, theta, and delta. And beta is where most of us live. And this is like the stressed out, kind of chaotic, all the thoughts are going all the time. And there's different levels of beta. Like there's low beta, which is, some stress is not all stress is bad, right? So like that's a good stress. Low and mid are kind of like that good stress, where it's, you're experiencing a stressful reaction and a stressful response, but it's not toxic. It's when we hit high beta, and this is where waves are literally, they're just firing all haywire. And most of us live there. It's also really exhausting. And so what meditation is designed to do is to take us from that beta state where stress exists and where most of us live, and move us into either alpha or theta. And so alpha is like the brainwaves of creativity. It's where we rest and digest, kind of. It's like our parasympathetic response takes over. And then theta is that state right before we actually go to sleep. So our body is starting to go to sleep, but our brain is still awake. And the idea is that when we can change our brainwave and our brain state like that, we change our physiology, because thoughts give rise to emotions, which give rise to actions, which produce results. And so if we're able to take control of our thoughts at any given moment in our day, and this is more what meditation is about, it's not about, sitting and being still and not thinking about anything for an hour. Like, I don't know how many of you have watched Eat, Pray, Love or read the book. She talks about being in an ashram in India, and trying to meditate, and she can't even get through 60 seconds. And so I think many of us have this perception of what meditation is from what's been portrayed in the media and books and around the world, but it's actually not about that necessarily. It's about shifting our focus and attention to something else, and taking control of those thoughts that are running us, right? Because a lot of that is happening subconsciously. Actually, I've talked a lot about that. Only 5% of our brain is actually contributing, like taken up by conscious thought. Most of it is happening on a subconscious level. And when we're constantly in these beta brainwaves and, not able to interrupt the stress response, we don't have any creativity and our energy isn't flowing. And we don't, we can't see beyond, we've got blinders on to everything around us and what's going on because we're just constantly in this stressed out mode. So as we can learn to, it's like a muscle that you have to use. And this is, getting into some neuroscience, but how we train that muscle, as in our brain, is through meditation. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this. It's called Hebb's postulate, but he essentially was the guy who figured out that neurons, in our brain that wire together. And so we create these neural pathways by the same cascade of things happening. And when we start our day, the same way, we go to the bathroom, we take a shower, we make our coffee, we drive the same way to work, we, do the same things at work, we come home to watch our favorite show and then go to sleep. When we do everything is repeated constantly, daily, our brain's not getting any new input and not creating any new pathways. When we're a kid, we're learning all this new stuff and creating new pathways and all of the things. Speaking of kids, mine's about to come interrupt me in the middle of this. He's not going to do that, right? And we have to find ways as we age. Once we're 35, all that's just kind of set in stone. And when we have little children that interrupt us, it sometimes throws our brain off on what we're thinking about. However, as so we have to become more intentional as we age in doing something differently to create new pathways and to have new bundles of neurons wiring together and firing together, because that's where we essentially create neuroplasticity, which is our brain's ability to flex and change. So if you're over 35 and you're listening to this like me, we're not screwed. We have the ability to impact that, but we have to start implementing and utilizing things that are going to create change and not repeat the same things over and over and get stuck in our habits. And we have to become aware enough to break some of those underlying patternings and, things that run us on an unconscious level so that we can step into something new. And a lot of this has to do with health and healing and losing weight or, wealth. And like all of these things are accessible by retraining our brain on some level. So I'm trying to keep this surfacey and not go too deep with you guys just so that it makes sense. And that's, like I said, getting into a lot of like neuroplasticity and all this stuff. So it's all about being able to move between different brain wavelengths through the day. And there's different ways you can access that. I'm just going to give you some of the stuff I've been utilizing and kind of starting to work with. One of them, there's two apps actually. One of them I have an affiliate link for, so just know that, but you get a free trial with that. The other I have no connection to whatsoever. I just really enjoy it. And so the one that I've been using with a lot of my clients is called Brain Tap app or Brain Tap Pro. I'll put links to these in the show notes. And so, you get a free trial with that one. And then I think it's 99 cents for another 30 days. So you essentially get to try it for 45 days for $1. But it's not just meditation, but it's utilizing different technology to help alter your brain waves a little bit. So there's, a little bit of element of self-hypnosis in that, not in like a scary way, but just hypnosis is all about actually changing that brain state too and moving from beta to alpha. That's like what the whole thing is. Because you have a greater level of suggestibility there. So there are things that, they have programs that deal with sleep and with weight loss and with just like life mastery in general and kids in school, which I need to test this on my son actually, speaking of that. And so I've been using that with my clients, the ones who have used it consistently. One woman is in her 50s and she's had insomnia since she was 7. And we were talking, she's like, I don't know what that thing is or what it does, but when I'm asleep in 2 minutes and I sleep like the dead. And I was like, cool, let's keep doing that. And, it's combining, principles from hypnotherapy, principles from meditation. It uses some diurnal beats and dual voice stuff, and it can feel kind of weird, but it has an impact. Others have used it, when they're really feeling stressed about something like coming off sugar, for example, and they're trying to lose weight. And they've been like, it's just easy. I can make the choice. So it's a cool thing to just experiment with. And again, it's about altering those brain waves and brain state. And then the other app that I've really been enjoying is called FitMind. And it's less time intensive, we'll put it that way. Brain Tap app, they're about 20 minutes. So, you got to find 20 minutes to either sit quietly or lie down. which we should all be able to do that, right? We should. If you don't feel like you have that much time, FitMind is a little more. I think it's like $70 for the year or something is the option for the subscription. You can try it free for 7 days, but they have like an introduction into all things meditation. And so it walks you through, and you start at like a minute a day, and it's just about breathing and shifting your focus to the tip of your nose, right? And then like we've learned some different breath work, some body scans, some using a mantra. And a mantra isn't, anything spiritual necessarily. It can be, but it's just about focusing your mind in the present moment, because that is where we slow down those brain waves and can stay present. So those are some of the tools and resources I've been using. And then Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you really want to go deep on this, he's like the master of understanding both meditation and quantum physics and marrying the two together. And his research is phenomenally fascinating. But this weekend I've been reading his book, Becoming Supernatural. These have all been part of my coursework. So we've read he has Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which is probably a good one to start with. You Are the Placebo came right after that. And then we have Becoming Supernatural, which he gets into kind of the world of mysticism a little bit, and not from the perspective of like becoming God, but connecting with God in a deep way that allows us to really create and manifest the life that we want, right? Because we do have free will and all of that. So all that to say, I was experimenting with his approach to a meditation, inside of that, where you actually focus on something that you want to create in the future. And so you picture what that is, and then you assign a capital letter to it. And then I like did this in my journal. So then I drew some squiggly lines around it, because this is a lot about moving energy and creating, tapping into the energy field that's around us. If we get into quantum physics, like we all are actually energy, and matter is just the expression of energy in like a tighter space. And so we have, these layers of energies kind of going out from us, and everything is connected. So, I don't want to like overwhelm anybody by getting too in depth with this, but that's essentially what this is about. So you write down your letter and draw your squiggly lines, and then write like, what does that mean? What does it look like? So I wrote, 6 or 7 little bullet points around it. And then the emotions that you will experience when that is achieved. And this gets into this whole, I've talked at other times and interviewed some people where we talk about you have to focus on who you want to be, and not the stuff to do to get to where you want to go, right? It's not like do, have, be, it's be, do, have. And so when we're talking about getting into that state of being, all of that is tied to our emotions and the emotions that we will experience in that. So you get really clear on what those are, like joy, peace, energy, whatever the thing is. Mine was around financial freedom, was what I was creating around. So there was like joy, peace, and gratitude, and the ability to give, and all of the stuff that was tied to that. And so then you focus on that and do some kind of focused work. And I used his guided meditation, which his tend to be pretty long. I will say that this is like 45 minutes, and it can be hard to find 45 minutes where no one interrupts you, right? So like start somewhere. That's why I gave you some other options here, that are like a minute or 20, and build up to this. But I found as I was doing this, because there's a lot of like work on focusing on the space both inside of us and then around us, and my body just started moving on its own. And if you've ever seen, there's a video I'll put a link to, that Joe Dispenza talks about, but I'd seen it in school. There's a bunch of metronomes, and they're all like out of sync. And then over time, they start to sync up, and that's what we call coherence. And so that's a term in physics and in um, neuroscience now, that they talk about like finding coherence. And it's like my body and my brain started to find that coherence, and was just like moving, and I just went with it. Like goodness, no one was around, because I'm sure it looked really weird. But I came out of that like feeling really energized, and kind of this new level of something. It was really cool. So all that to say, I'm experimenting more with this stuff, and stuff being, tools like meditation and biofeedback, and using our brain and actually accessing our brain to transform, rather than just trying to acquire new knowledge and like try more stuff, right? There's something to be said to getting all the way back to the root. And if you don't want to go to the level of understanding quantum physics and like connection and coherence and all that, that's fine. Take the piece that's about like being able to move your brain into different wavelengths and brain states. And the one thing I will say, like anything you have that you do that is tapping into your creativity, like for me is playing the violin. My son wanted to learn to play guitar, so I decided to learn to play guitar with him. I've been playing violin for 30 years, so it's not really complicated for me to learn how to play the guitar, but doing stuff like that will move you from beta into alpha. Drawing, painting, knitting, like writing, any of those creative things that maybe you haven't been making time for, because I know from experience it can be easy to put those things on the wayside. That's another way you can access and start to retrain your brain and have those moments of moving out of that beta state and into alpha, and just learning, the idea is that we learn how to do that at any given time. And so if you're feeling stressed on the freeway, you have your tool, like maybe you focus on the breath at the tip of your nose, or you repeat the mantra I've learned is like right here. So when you breathe in, you say right, and out you breathe here, or just this, same thing. 2 words, you can make it whatever you want, just to focus you in the present. And being able to do that throughout your day will give you access to decreasing your stress, which is going to help your body and all the things that we always talk about on this show improve. Take what you will with that. Reach out if you have any questions. I will put resources in the show notes to all the things that I mentioned and we talked about. And just remember to keep some open-minded curiosity, and not, so many of us and so many doctors, honestly, in Western medicine, we get stuck in, we aren't open to anything new. And I think there can be a lot to be learned and gleaned from tapping into some of the stuff that honestly has been around for a long time. And just now, science is finally starting to explain, which I find really cool, because, those of us who need that validation, it's here. We just have to be willing to look at it and explore it. And with that, we will see you on Thursday.